What's up, everyone, and welcome to Beer Breakdown, where we dig into the stories behind some of our favorite beers with the brewers that brew them. Today, I'm joined by Mike Richmond, head brewer at Tarantula Hill Brewing Company in Thousand Oaks, California. And we're drinking a very special beer. This is Cali Day IPA, which, according to the back of the can, says a crushable, lighter IPA with a whopping dose of Laurel and Mosaic. This is a really cool, really unique beer. I had the pleasure of trying this beer for the very first time on camera, on air, with Mike. No pressure. But luckily, this is a really, really cool beer that I really enjoyed. Tarantula Hill doing some really cool stuff right now. Just got their own canning line in. Just got picked up for Stone Distro. Putting out some amazing beer that is going to be way more accessible in a lot more areas around Southern California and beyond. So if you have not tried Tarantula Hill, highly recommend hitting up your local bottle shop, seeing if they have it. If they haven't, make sure to request it. But also check out their spot in Thousand Oaks. It is a really, really cool space, super unique in the Southern California area in that in addition to beer, they're doing food, pizza, homemade ice cream, just a really cool family-friendly vibe, and just a lot of cool stuff going on in that space. So make sure to check it out next time you're heading up or down the 101. And as always, with this podcast, pause it right now and go out and grab some Cali Day and drink it along with us. The episode just goes down that much better when you do that. So I'll wait, pause it, and then we'll come back and pick it back up. So without further ado, really excited to get into this conversation with Mike Richmond of Tarantula Hill Brewing Company. Check it out. But before we get into it, a quick word from our sponsors, Hi-Lo Liquor. I cannot say enough good things about Hi-Lo. Honestly, some of the best beers that you can get your hands on in the LA area. They're bringing in some of your local favorites. They're bringing in really heavy hitters from around the Southern California and California area, and then also a lot of stuff outside the state and overseas too. Just a really eclectic, really diverse, and really just well curated selection of beer, in addition to all of their other beverages and gourmet foods. So just pulling up their Instagram right now. You should be following it. It's at Hi-Lo Beer. Some of the recent stuff they've brought in: Highland Park Brewery, their Timbo Week releases. They got in There Does Not Exist. They got in Southern Grist, Stillwater, Bottle Logic, Tripping Animals, Untitled Art, Fremont, Beechwood Blendery, Bottle Logic again, Great Notion, Maine Beer Company. The list goes on and on. Honestly, it goes on and on and on. It's so good. So make sure you're following them on Instagram. Turn on notifications so you get that heads up. You're going to want it. But also check them out. They got a store in Culver City. They got a store in Long Beach. They do delivery throughout most of LA. They do shipping in California. What else could you ask for? Hi-Lo Liquor is doing it right, and we highly recommend you check them out. Support us, support them, and drink well. Hi-Lo. Mike, good to see you, brother. Thank you so much for joining me on a weekend, at the very least, taking the time out of your schedule to sit down, drink some beer, which I know you hate doing.
Yeah, this is a tough part of the job, man. So no problem on my end.
So Mike, heading up the brewing side at Tarantula Hill. For anyone that's listening that doesn't know Tarantula Hill, like, what is it? What are you guys all about? Give us the down low.
Cool. Well, the name is always something people want to know about, and the name's pretty basic. There's if you're ever driving past TO on the 101, there is one hill in Thousand Oaks, and it just kind of looks like a mound. It's about 1,000 feet tall. And there's one little tree on it that makes it kind of distinctive, and it's called Tarantula Hill. So you can see it from the brewery. So that's kind of where the name came from. We're located right on Teal Boulevard, pretty easy to get to right off the freeway. And it's an old plumber's furniture store. So it's a pretty cool 23,000 square foot building with a big glass front and a nice big deck out front. and a really cool old school sloping roof with a bunch of, metal I-beams. So the building is really cool. We did a lot of work to it. We started in 2018 construction after I left Stone and signed on for this project. And we finally opened in July 4th of 2019. We didn't have any of our own beer really, but we have a license to do guest beers and wine. And it was the 4th of July and everyone was like, screw it, let's just open and get it done with.
I remember that. That seemed like a crazy time, just rushing to get the doors open. And then I feel like the community was like itching and waiting for you guys to open up. And the first few weekends started off just massive with your outdoor patio and all the inside just taken up, and it doesn't seem to have slowed down.
No, I mean, my partners are all from Thousand Oaks. I'm from Newbury Park, which is essentially Thousand Oaks too. So it's kind of cool. The story behind it, we're all the local guys kind of getting back together to do this, massive project. There's nothing really like this in Thousand Oaks. So, we have a lot of support from the community, and just old friend, family. But yeah, we're really happy with how it's going. We were, packed to the gills all before COVID. And now that we're back open and we can have the parking lot as a kind of a beer garden, we're back up and cranking. As the fun spot to be on the weekends especially.
Yeah, and you mentioned there's not really a spot like it in TO. There's not really a spot like it in a lot of cities. So break down like the entire concept of Tarantula Hill. I mean, obviously there's the brewing operation, which we'll dig into, but like what else is Tarantula Hill?
Well, that was kind of an awesome overall vision. It was a lot to bite off, but the other guys handled it amazingly. So the vision was for it to be a big family spot, where people can go after Little League and ASO games. That's where you take the family on the weekends, and then at night it can kind of transform into a little bit of a more nightlife type of crowd with some live music and such. But inside, we have the brewing operation, of course, and we have our own really cool custom pizza oven for Neapolitan pizzas. And it kind of just started off beer and pizza, and ice cream got added in. Our other partner, John, he is big in the ice cream business, and he actually hand makes all the ice cream at the brewery that everyone's eating there. So that's kind of a fun little thing going on there. We're trying to do coffee and go over to breakfast, but with COVID happening, that's kind of got all backed up. And what we found, we were so busy that the pizza oven just couldn't keep up on its own. So we really had to expand the menu and shift some of that load off the pizza oven. So now our new executive chef Ivan is awesome. We've got lots of typical Southern California fare, in addition to the salads or the pizzas. There's a bunch of salads and burgers and wings and street tacos and burritos and all that good stuff too. So it kind of really ties the whole thing together. And we don't just have our own beer. We do guest beers and cool tap takeovers, and we have wine too. We really wanted to be, you can't have someone have an excuse not to want to go. If they don't like beer, we have wine and kombucha. And if you don't like burgers and pizza, there's all sorts of other items to eat. And the interior space just came out amazing looking. It's really big and open in there, so it really gives a cool communal vibe.
Yeah, it's really like a one-stop shop. I mean, you don't really have to go, and when you're planning a group outing with the kids, with different groups of friends, and thinking about this person doesn't drink beer or this person's vegan or whatever, like navigating that course, like Tarantula Hill is kind of the go-to default for making sure that there's something for everyone. Whether it's like, getting together with your buddies and drinking beers, or it's like a family thing, like you guys kind of are able to accommodate a lot of different, personalities and preferences and tastes and stuff.
Yeah. And if you're just going for like, doing a little work or having a meeting with someone or taking a big group there, we can handle all of that. We can, reserve like stuff for parties. We were having some awesome Christmas parties before COVID hit. So yeah, like you said, there's really something for everyone to do there. we have usually, between 15 and 18 of our own beers on that are not just, IPAs and stuff. We have a lot of traditional beers as well. So we really made it, we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into any certain thing. It is just a massive project, and it came out really good.
Yeah. And I think the location too, Thousand Oaks, obviously kind of like right on that border of Ventura County and LA County. So you have the draw from like both sides up and down the 101, which makes it, I think, even more of an attractive destination. If you're like road tripping up the freeway and like you want to make a quick stop off, or, you have people meeting kind of in the middle. Location wise, I think is pretty awesome. And we spoke at the top, at the community side. I think like building something for the Thousand Oaks community seemed to be like core to the mission. And I feel like you guys delivered on that. And then, we'll get into Cali Day, but it's kind of representative of your guys' growth, where like now you're distributing through Stone, right?
That's correct.
So it's like serve the locals, build that community, and then slowly expand outwards. We see so many times breweries try to do the opposite, or like try to do both at the same time. And it's like they didn't figure out their identity. They, didn't build that core group locally, and they tried to expand too quickly. It feels like you guys are on this like really nice sequential path of growth, like sustainable growth.
Yeah, you nailed like a couple of things I was going to say right after that perfectly. Location wise, it is kind of center in town. It's on Thousand Oaks Boulevard. It's super close to the freeway. So it's easy for everyone in town to get to. But like you're saying, one of my goals was, once we were kind of more established, people that are going up and down the 101, from San Diego and all the way to San Francisco and back and forth, especially industry folks like my fellow brewers, and just people that are, love the craft beer scene. Mm-hmm. I was like, if we see the people starting to stop off and, come and buy 4-packs and post them on Instagram in their hometowns and, get Untapped ratings from all over the place, I was like, that's really was one of my big goals, was to see people that are not actually from town, but if they're kind of passing by, they're like, oh, there's this new beer that came out from T Hill. We got to go pick it up and try it and say hello to the guys and stuff. So that was really important. And, I think we're definitely getting to that point where we're seeing lots of cool brewers stop by from all up and down the coast. And that definitely makes me very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely apparent. You mentioned Stone earlier. Bring me back to the early days, like maybe even pre-Stone. Like, how did you get into beer and brewing?
Well, I was a bioscience major at UC Santa Barbara. So I've always been, life science and kind of technical engineering oriented type of person. Actually moved to Washington, D.C. for about 7 years after college. And that's kind of where I got into doing some homebrewing and joined the DC Homebrewers Club. And, made a bunch of shitty homebrew in my apartment that never came out good. But I was just stoked on like the process and trying to repeat, make Dogfish, 60-minute or something like that. Starting to clone stuff. So I really just got into it, and ended up moving back to California because I wanted to come back at some point, and decided to go do the Master Brewers program at UC Davis. So graduated there in 2009, and I just asked my professor if he could send my resume to Mitch Steele at Stone, because that's where I wanted to work, and he did, and I got an interview and worked at Stone for 10 years.
Wow. That's an interesting path. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know your background, and I didn't expect the big DC stint out there, and then coming back being like, I'm going to get into brewing. I'm going to go straight to UC Davis and do that thing, which I think is a logical move. And then just having that vision, like, I want to work under Mitch Steele. I want to work for Stone, and getting that like direct entry into it. Awesome. So take me through Stone. You were there for 10 years, you said?
Yeah, 9, I think.
Okay. So obviously like working up the ladder there. I know you eventually got more on the management side, right?
Yeah, but started in 2009. Moved right from Davis to Oceanside and started work there right after passing the test, pretty much. Actually graduated with Brandon Winokur, who now runs Lost Winds in San Clemente, and Justinian Kerr, who is brewing on Buzz Rock in Torrance. So that was kind of cool. We all went to Stone together, and now we're doing our own thing. Yeah, but typical. Worked for not very much money, scrubbing the floors, even though I had all this knowledge. But that's kind of how the brewing industry works. You always got to start on the bottom and move up. But just being an assistant brewer at Stone for a little bit, really motivated, would work any shift, and moved right up to running the centrifuge and the filter, and then running the brew house, and then being a shift lead. And then soon enough, I was the cellar manager, and then the brew house manager, and then just the brewing manager at the end. So it was cool to see. Other than packaging, I didn't really dip too much into packaging, but I got to, see how every other process worked in depth and go through every expansion and growth with the packaging hall and new cellars and the second brew house being added, new silos being added, all sorts of fun stuff. So I felt like I was just constantly learning, and there was, never a dull day there. But I wouldn't have been able to open up the brewing side of T Hill with the spectacular fashion that we did without having all that knowledge from Stone, for sure.
What brought you to Tarantula Hill? Like, were you looking to get back on a smaller scale and get more hands-on with your own thing, and that just like serendipitously happened? Or were you kind of like approached by the ownership group and kind of recruited into it? Or how did that whole process go? That's
a pretty cool little story. I was nice and happy at Stone, but once you're at a certain place for almost a decade, you do kind of start getting a little like looking around and seeing what's out there. But it was a very comfortable and fun job, and I had a lot of control over things, so it was good. But I had my ears open, and it was actually Katie and I were at a Bluesapalooza, maybe like 2017 or 18. And she got a text from Tyler from Libertine asking for my number. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I talked to Tyler a bunch of times at festivals, but I just didn't have his number. So he texted me, and we chatted on the phone a bit, and he said, hey, there's someone in Thousand Oaks that's opening a brewery. And I was like, no shit, my hometown? And he didn't know I was from there. And he's like, oh, you're even from there. That's pretty cool. But I was like, who's going to open a brewery in TO? I don't even think, the city didn't even allow a brewery to exist at that point, despite there being breweries all around the other cities. And I was like, all right, give me his number. And he gave me his number, and it was Ollie from Bottle and Pint. And I was like, what kind of crazy idea do you got going on, man? Because, I kind of knew him in passing from Bottle and Pint as the guy. When he opened Bottle and Pint, it was the same story. I'm like, who's opening like a nice tap room in Newbury Park? Like that hasn't happened before.
Right.
And so it was Ollie, and we chatted a little bit. And he kind of told me the layout. So I snuck out of San Diego a couple times and took a peek at the spot. It was really haggard looking. So I knew there would be a lot of work, but I was like, yeah, if when we have the drawings ready, tell me kind of what you're looking for, and I'll give you a lowdown what I think is possible there. And then if that looks cool and the money is right, and I get a little piece of the pie, then we can talk about making this a reality. And then we did. The first drawing I looked at, architectural, I was like, oh, this is going to blow people away. And I was like, I'm taking a risk. I'm going for it.
Yeah, and the ability to kind of like design and build from the ground up the kind of system that you thought would match the business model, and also kind of like your own personal passion, like making sure that you were able to do the things that you wanted to do. I think what I'm thinking about is like, you're coming from brewery management at Stone, which obviously isn't like the biggest beer producer in the country, but from a craft standpoint, this is, as pretty large. It's a large scale compared to craft.
Yeah, it was ninth largest when I left.
Right. So, seeing this like operation at like a high level, managing these processes, going back into the smaller scale, and even Tarantula Hill, like I wouldn't call it, it's not like the nano brewery of yesteryear. It's a pretty decent size from a startup craft brewery, but like, what was it like going into that? What was it like applying that mindset of what you were overseeing at Stone into a smaller scale and designing that from the ground up?
Like with a lot of transfers like that, there's a lot of things that are way easier. There's a lot of things that are, a lot more difficult. On the more difficult wise, it's just the stress and the burden of just being responsible to open up the brewing side and, just make it work and pick all the right equipment. And I was given carte blanche for that side of the brewery to lay it out however we wanted and pick out all the equipment that I thought would be the fit. So that was definitely kind of the hardest and most stressful part, because once you say you're good and you pull the trigger and, the capital investments start coming in and being purchased, start cutting the floor, this is how it's going to be. So it better come out good. But, basically took everything I didn't like at Stone and from other breweries, quizzed a bunch of brewers, like, give me the top 10 things you do different across the company. And, just made a list. And anything that kept coming up was like, all right, let's do that or don't do that. Simple things like have the mash tun grain out face the door so it's easy to get the forklift in and out. But, surprisingly, that doesn't happen in a lot of places. When you have the chance to do it from the ground up, you can do it your way. And, I couldn't have done it without Dante, who I worked with at Stone forever. So that was part of me signing onto the project, was I get to pick, the brewer that's going to be with me to make this project work. And they're like, yeah, fine. And I've told Dante, I'm like, you're doing this with me. You can stay at Stone for a little bit, but as soon as we're ready to go, I'm going to pay you more and you got to come up and do this, man. And, and then along with him came his wife, Tara, who'd also worked at Stone for 10 years. And it was a perfect fit for kind of operations. So she handles a lot of the book work of TTB and labels and raw material ordering and, all of that stuff. That's just like a massive undertaking. So between the three of us, it was a great fit for everyone to make the project come to life.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work, a lot of planning, but a massive amount of serendipity along with it. Just like, you went to Newbury Park High School. This is in TO. Everything's just so local based. You're back home. I don't know if you planned on like moving back to your home area, but here was the opportunity to do so. And it lined up timing wise. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't really part of the plan, but, like my parents would say, you don't just get this opportunity. It's definitely risky, but, it's a once in a lifetime chance. You just got to do it. They're like, if you completely fall on your face, we'll help you out. Luckily to have a lot of family support. And obviously Katie, my wife, was on board with it. She's from the area as well. A little bit farther south, Calabasas area. And, our goal in life was to move back up towards the Central Coast at some point. We both really like it up, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, and San Luis. Those are really spots that we enjoy a lot. So we saw this as kind of the first step in, maybe being able to live a little bit farther up the Central Coast kind of later in life after this, project is hopefully even more successful.
Yeah, it seems like you're moving into the next phase of things. I mean, pandemic aside, the distribution deal, just, getting all of that kind of to the next level. It seems like you're in that process now. And yeah, it's a good time to be in the Central Coast too. Like the Central Coast beer scene is really kind of blossomed right alongside you guys too. Yeah. Since I'm in LA, I tend to think of like, Thousand Oaks, almost like more closer to LA County or like the LA side of things. But I mean, it definitely anchors the south part of the Central Coast, right? It goes like down to like that Ventura County line. And
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
right down the freeway from us, like 1 or 2 exits is LA County. So we are the tail end of Ventura County.
Yeah, the Central Coast is
But yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I love all the breweries up in our area. You know, within everyone in right close to us. Good friends with everyone, and also farther up the coast. We have a lot of relationships and friends up in San Luis in that area. So all the way up to Paso to Firestone. So it's just like I said, it's a really cool scene on the Central Coast right now. Even we live in Ventura. It's not the Ventura I remember when I was in college. It's pretty cool. It reminds me of kind of like how Oceanside was when I moved there in 2009 versus Oceanside now. Like last time I was down there, I hadn't been to Craft Coast and seen Blake since he opened that place, and I was just like, wow, there's so many buildings up here, and this is like a brand new Oceanside to me. Yeah. So I think Ventura is going the same way, and really cool breweries here, Made West and Topa and Seaward, Ventura Coast. Really good friends with all those guys too. So just love living up here.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, and getting into the distribution side of things, there's a number of beers that are in your kind of like core rotation. My first introduction to you was the Tarantula Hill IPA. I remember that took home People's Choice, I believe, at LA IPA Fest a couple years back. And It was kind of like, all right, I know these guys are from Stone. Like you and I had talked a little bit, and I knew that there was to expect good things, but that beer kind of started like cementing the reputation in my mind. And then you got into, putting out a number of different styles. The hazy stuff is all fantastic. I had that Mai Tai Paradise Falls, which is phenomenal. And then Cali Day came on the radar. It seemed like it was kind of like a pandemic baby for you that came out and like slotted into regular rotation at the like beginning part of this year. So tell me about Cali Day. Like that's the beer we're going to be drinking today. And while we're talking about it, I'm going to grab it from the fridge. But yeah, tell me about Cali Day.
Yeah, Cali Day was, we have a 20 barrel production system that does all the main stuff and, provides all the distro for Stone and some of our heavy hitters to the tap room. But we have a 5 barrel system too that's completely independent. You can brew on them both at the same time. And that's kind of our little R&D and fun thing. And, Dante does a lot of work on the 5 barrel and makes a lot of killer just recipes. And, sometimes they're one-offs or sometimes we end up making them a couple times if they're popular. And if they're really popular, then we'll scale the recipe up and pop it onto the 20 barrel and see how it goes from there. So Cali Day was an example of that. I forget what we called. Oh, I think we called it we made it after the Lakers won the championship during the pandemic, and we called it Tastes Like Victory. It was just for fun R&D beer. And it was super popular and everyone loved how it came out. And so we made it again. And we were like, all right, we can't call it Taste Like Victory forever. It'll be embarrassing if they, blown out in the first round the next year or something, which obviously they did. So we've changed, we went ahead and we're having a bunch of Taste Like Victories, and we decided we wanted to brew it again and call it something else. And that's typically how we come up with a bunch of fun names, just sitting around the picnic table in front of the brew house, just kind of shooting the shit. And it just popped out. I think Dante came up with it, Cali Day, and we're like, Cali Day? Like, we're coming up with like Cali Mist or Cali, all these things that sounded like weed. And we're like, well, Cali Day doesn't really sound like a weed strain, but surely like the name is taken. And, looked it up and we were kind of shocked. Like, no one has done Cali Day yet. Like, wow. Let's do it. And so that's kind of where the name came from. What's unique about the beer is it was the first time we tried this new hopping method where when you're transferring the beer into the fermenter and you're waiting for it to go through all of its things and then dry hopping it later on when it's done fermenting and recirculating it. We learned fun new method that Anthony was using at Virgin, where you take your dry hop that you would usually put in the beer, but just throw it in the manway while you're brewing into it. And so I was like, I don't know, it's probably not going to work, but this is what the system's for. Let's try it out. And it just comes out like when you dry hop it like that, the beer just comes out really clean. It's not like overly hopped, not bitter at all. We don't even put any bittering hops in it. And, we made it about 6.2%. So it's a great like outdoor, you're at snowboarding on the beach, doing work at the house. This is a perfect beer for that. And then, of course, the artwork, our owner knows Risk. He's like the legend of the West Coast graffiti scene. He lives super close to us. His little compound where he does all of his artwork is right at Thousand Oaks. He's a really cool guy. And so we were like, would you be down to, design labels for it? And, he was. And so a couple of our cans, like Cali Day and Liquid Candy, Tarantula Hill IPA, are all his artwork, which is, I'm still completely amazed that is on our cans. And then we actually just made a black IPA. I don't think you've had it yet on the 5-barrel. We brewed it again. It's called Cali Nights.
Nice.
So we got the Cali theme going, which kind of matches all of our personas. And
is the Cali Night sticking to the 5-barrel? Or are you guys scaling that up? Or what is a black IPA? How can you even do a big batch of that? Like, are you trying that?
The first, I'm always like, black IPA is a dead style. It doesn't sell well ever, especially in market and distro. But Dante and I really, really love black IPAs. Sublimely Self-Righteous was by far my favorite. And we really loved brewing that at Stone, but we didn't get to that often. So yeah, we were just kind of around like, we got a spot on the 5-barrel next week. Let's brew something weird or something different. And black IPA came up. And we made it with much more modern and fun hops. It's hopped with just Citra and Nelson, I think, throughout, instead of, I think Sublimely was Simcoe and Amarillo. But it came out jet black, exactly how the color we wanted, and a little bit of roast, nice and hoppy. That's one of those beers where we first sipped it after we carved it. We were like, damn, like, this is great. I still don't think it's going to sell well, but and we went through a 5-barrel batch really fast, and we got a lot of compliments on it from people that had never had black IPAs before, didn't know what it was. And so, we just brewed our second batch of it on the 5-barrel, and that'll kind of be the gauge of, can we make a bigger one, or do we just kind of rotate a 5-barrel every couple months of it? So it's kind of hard to see, don't want to make a 20-barrel of it and see it get old and go to waste.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That style in particular is a tough one. What was that thought process like for Cali Day? So, last year for when it was under Tastes Like Victory, and then I think I was trying to do a little bit of research. I think it came back as Cali Day last November, and then in a small batch possibly, and then again in January.
Yeah, it came back a couple times. It was hard to do. That was right in the middle of COVID, so we couldn't just be brewing for fun as much, especially when we were fully locked down, because you couldn't get rid of the beer. But at least when we were kind of partially open, we could open up the 5-barrel a little bit more.
Yeah.
Had there been no COVID, this beer would have taken off right off the bat for sure. But we had to just kind of brew it when we knew we'd be open, then get shut down again, then open, shut down. You know how it is, especially it's tougher in LA for sure. But yeah, we brewed it a couple times, and anytime we were open, it just flew right out, and people loved it. So we knew we were going to scale it up at some point just for the tap room. And then talks of distribution came on, and Stone guided us through. They came and visited a bunch of times with their whole crew, and we put our best foot forward, and they kind of helped say, if you're going to pick 3 or 4 beers for a distro to start with, here's kind of what you need to do. And they agreed that Cali Day would be now a distro beer.
That's awesome. So after talking about it, I'm thirsty. I'm salivating for this beer. I'm going to crack it open and try it for the very first time. Let's take it step by step. as I pour it and kind of taste through it, appearance wise, what are you going for here? I mean, it's got this beautiful kind of like bright yellow tinge of gold orange, haze appearance to it. I don't think that you call this a hazy IPA, so I'm assuming this is, that dry hopping that is kind of clouding things up here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's kind of weird. We haven't quite, we're still kind of new with all of our techniques and tweaking them. And we're trying to find the right amount of biofine because we don't filter. So biofine and temperature and time to drop the haze out as much as possible. And, to be honest, we've brewed it sometimes and it's come out like crystal clear. And
Really?
we've brewed it sometimes trying to do the exact same thing, and it's had a little to it. So the goal is to make it come out a little clearer than that. Mm-hmm. But something we're still working on.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's something to be expected, especially as you're taking a 5-barrel batch, scaling it up, getting it into distro, into that bigger production, and figuring out exactly how to treat this beer. So appearance wise, it looks beautiful. Got a nice little head on it. Just really appetizing. I mean, in this day and age, a beer like this is what people want to see. Sometimes even more than clear beer. So, me personally, I'd probably lean towards more of the clear beer, but I know enough to like not really pay too much attention to what it looks like. On the aroma, what are you trying to achieve from an aroma standpoint on this beer, and how are you doing it?
So the aroma, three quarters of the hops throughout the brewing and the dry hop process, that kind of new dry hop process I was talking about. There's only 2 hops in it. And the main one, 3/4 of the hop bill is Laurel, which is a hop we used quite a bit at Stone. And it was kind of a brewer favorite at Stone. And Dante and I in particular really like Laurel. I've definitely seen it be a polarizing hop for some people, but I think it's fantastic. It's they called it Laurel for it's a combination of lemon and floral, I believe, so that makes Laurel. And it's very flowery and very perfumey. Mm-hmm. It's just one of my favorite hops. We used it when Ghost Hammer came out at Stone. It was a heavy Laurel beer, and I just love that beer. So we had to do a big Laurel beer, and this is it. And I mean, it's hard to go wrong with throwing a little Mosaic in there. So yeah, there you go. It's pretty basic hop bill, but you don't see a lot of really heavy Laurel beers out there. So I think it kind of makes it a little unique on the market.
Yeah, the combination with Laurel and Mosaic is great. And like you said, Mosaic plays a background component in the aroma, but it kind of rounds it out. It keeps it from getting too floral in that direction. So you have that massive perfuminess, but like it's not astringent, it's not off-putting. That Mosaic kind of berry, tropical fruit kind of rounds it out a little bit and makes for a really nice combination, a nice bouquet.
Yeah, and actually our first beers when we opened in the first few months, we did a 100% Laurel beer. It was called Rest on Laurel. And it was, everyone thought it was a fantastic beer. And it was one of those beers where I thought, some people will really, really like it. And some people will be like, that hop's not for me. But that was kind of the test of it, of doing a Laurel-based beer. And we just got a really good response. And I was like, we'll just, cut the Laurel down a little bit with some everyone's favorite hop Mosaic, and what could go wrong?
I'm like falling in love with the nose more and more as I keep digging into it. The beer, I'm in my garage right now, so like it's good 85 in here. The beer's warming up quickly, and it's just opening up the aroma side. Really, really great. I'm really liking how this beer smells. I'm going to dive into the taste. I'm super thirsty, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, it should be pretty crisp. Not heavy like a hazy at all. Half of the malt bill is Pilsner malt. So we like doing, we call it a 50-50 IPA. And quite a few of our beers have a 50-50 malt bill split of Pilsner and two-row. And I don't know where we came up with that, but we did. And that makes up a lot of bases. And there's a little bit of Wyoming pale wheat in there. But pretty simple malt bill and pretty simple hop bill. It's just a crisp, clean beer. And a lot of industry people like to have more than one of the same beer. And this is definitely, you know, a beer where you can sit out and have a couple of them and not be too overwhelmed by the flavor and the alcohol or anything like that.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting fit in your guys' core lineup, in that maybe 5 years ago you would have brewed this a little smaller and called it a session IPA. But instead it's got a little bit more weight to it, and it's crushable IPA or whatever the label. You know, we're not pigeonholed by style names anymore. So you can put out something like this and it can be whatever you want it to be. And in terms of you being the drinker, like if I wanted this to be my sessionable daytime drinker, that's perfectly fine and you can do it. Especially for like a hop head, this is on the lighter side. You get all of that hop flavor, all of that hop aroma, but like you said, goes down super easy and you can crush multiple. But if maybe you're not a hop head and you're just kind of more all over the spectrum, you can have a beer like this and you can sit on it for a while, and this can be kind of your one beer for the night. So I like that this kind of bridges, it has its legs on like both sides of the spectrum, and just super dry. I mean, I feel like what I was expecting up front is like you get this like really nice juicy component, and in some of these beers that juiciness lingers, saturates your tongue, and kind of just like hangs around. But this one just gives you that up front and then gets out of the way, it disappears, and it gets you ready for sip number two, which ultimately ends up being like gulp number two, because I don't think you can sip this beer. It kind of like once it hits your lips, like you're taking like a larger swallow, just because the weight is like perfectly balanced. It's not too heavy, it's not too thin. I really like how I'm experiencing this beer right now. It's really cool.
Yeah, for kind of our more West Coast style beers, we like them to finish out dry. All of our typical West Coast. I'll be working in Plato for anyone out there that's in specific gravity, but you know, T Hill IPA and Cali Day, and most of our, you know, fun beers on the board that are kind of quote unquote West Coast-y are all going to be about 1 to 1.2 Plato when they're finished. We go up to about 2.5, 2.6 for the hazies to get that bigger, chunkier mouthfeel in there. But I like these really crisp, bone dry IPAs.
Yeah, this is really nice. I feel like it does a lot of what, like I said, Session wants to do, and like Hazy Pale kind of wants to do. Like there's elements of some of these styles that kind of combine. It takes from, you know, almost like on the finish, it kind of like, I almost want to go like it takes a little bit from Brut IPA, like the dryness side of that. And it combines a lot of different elements from a lot of different styles in a way that I think makes it appealing for a number of different drinkers, or like a number of different drinking situations. Right now in my garage, or hitting the backyard, going to the tap room with buddies, like, you know, going up to the mountains, you can grab some cans of this. It's really going to fit in a lot of different situations. I like that. I can see why Stone kind of picked this out as being something that would really fit alongside their distro package with you. So you brewed it last year under a different name. Like, how has the beer evolved? Do you continue seeing it evolving from here? Any details you can share on that?
No, I mean, as soon as we got it dialed in, we don't really change. I'm not a big fan of tweaking recipes constantly. Once it's where we like it, that's just how we keep it for most things. I'm kind of a stickler for consistency of beers. So I don't want to go and change the hop bill and hopping methods and tweak the malt bill around. It's great how it is. And, you know, something I learned from Stone is once you have a market beer or a beer that's kind of popular, people want the same thing. That's why they're buying the beer. You don't want to go and start changing it up and calling it, you know, like 2.0 and everything like that. It just doesn't work that well. But no, we're not going to change it. We made the thing that we usually change the most once we have a beer kind of dialed in and we're canning it is we'll do little tweaks to the artwork. So maybe if you see a little bit of different font or coloring somewhere here or there, probably not even noticeable to the general public. But that's really the only thing we'll change about it once the beer is dialed in.
Cool. Yeah, I think that when I talk to the brewers, it's either kind of one way or the other. Like some people like just are constantly tweaking, even on established brands, and they don't really care as much about the consistency side, just as long as they feel like they're improving over time. But then, like you said, there's that other mindset where it's like, we've got something good here. People like it. People understand it. And we want to keep hitting on those same notes so that, every time you grab a can of Cali Day, you know exactly what you're going to be getting. So I completely get that.
Yeah. Like if you have it again in November, I want you to be like, oh, damn, it tastes exactly how I remember it. Awesome.
I think it's interesting how, I didn't really think about it that much. Like, it's interesting how some brewers will take a brand and consistently tweak it. And I have had instances where I'm like, I've had that, I've liked it before, but I also haven't liked it. And I don't know if I'm going to get it again, or I don't know if I'll recommend it because I'm not sure what it's going to be like this time. So yeah, there is definitely something to say about consistency in terms of like the consumer loyalty experience, like getting someone to buy the same beer again. I think that's, in today's age of craft beer, the past like 5 years or so, loyalty has been the number one challenge. And how do we get someone to buy the same beer again when everyone's got shiny object syndrome,
Yeah. And we try to do the best of both worlds. If you want the shiny new object, you pop into the tap room. We have always many new shiny new objects. And, we just got our new can line up and running. We commissioned it last week. So, thankfully that's all done and I can have a nice weekend this weekend. But the goal with the can line, the flexibility it allows, we use Boom Hood, our mobile canner. Andres, he's local Thousand Oaks guy. He's awesome. I couldn't be more happy with the work that he did, but the flexibility to have a can line, we can essentially come up with a bunch of cool names and kind of styles, and then have our artists make, just 10 labels. And then we'll order them all. So we have 10 labels of all these cool beers that we haven't even brewed yet or don't even know what the recipe is. We just kind of have a name and an alcohol. And then on the 5-barrel, we just make all these beers and just can them up. So, in upcoming months, you'll be looking for cool new can drops a lot more frequently from us because we can brew one on the 5-barrel, get a couple kegs, and then can it off really easily too. So we're definitely going to make sure that we keep up with shining objects and have really fun new cans, can art, beer names coming up constantly. And that allows us to keep these core beers, kind of unchanged and the same, and, see how they do in the big distribution market while keeping, our brand and beer is super, super relevant and kind of on the cutting edge. Anytime there's a cool new concept in brewing, I learned that someone's doing, we just talk to that brewer or those brewers about it. And then we just go make it on the 5-barrel and see how it comes out. Mm-hmm. We're always trying to do all that fun new stuff while keeping some core beers super consistent.
Spoken like a guy who understands the importance of process, the importance of consistency, but also the importance of experimentation and keeping things fresh and new. So that's awesome that, you had the foresight to build that into your brewery floor plan, that you have what's the full size brew house size?
That one's a 20.
So you have the 20 and the 5 that are just like working side by side, hand in hand, sometimes on different things, sometimes on similar variants and things like that. Also collabs, like you guys have done a few really interesting collabs too, a Virgin, Mumford, like some really cool brewers that I've seen you guys work with. And like you said, learning from other brewers, like things that they're playing around with that you can then play around with yourself.
Yeah. Doing collabs was a big part of one of the funnest things we did at Stone. And, we definitely wanted to bring, Dante and I had been there long enough and in the industry long enough that, you just gradually start to know everyone. And so, yeah, anyone that we were good friends with, or we really like their beer and their vibe, I mean, it's an instant, we hit them up and be like, we think this would be a great collab. Do you want to do it your place or our place? And so we try to keep those collabs going strong. We had the Virgin, and the Mumford one was great. The Bottle Logic pastry stout was really fun because I had never brewed anything like that before. That was crazy. So that's good to get under the belt. I think I sent you some.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it.
Yeah, so that was Wes really helped me get through that brew, and it's basically he pretty much told me what to do, and we hoped it worked out, but it did. We had a fun time brewing with the June Lake guys and the Distant guys up in Mammoth. We loved going up there. So yeah, and look forward to Eric from Casa Agria lives 4 houses down the street from me, so we've got something up our sleeve coming up at some point, and then be on the lookout for a society collab, perhaps. Doug, Teddy, if you're listening to this, can we get on that more, please? And then, Katie obviously works for Modern Times, so pretty good friends with the Modern Times crew. So I'd maybe look out for a Modern Times collab as well.
Exciting stuff. Out of the box of beers that you sent over, there's a number of your beers. You mentioned the Bottle Logic collab. There's the Mai Tai Paradise Falls, the Liquid Candy, 2 of your kind of hazy, juicy beers that I've had both of them before. I love them. You also sent something that was from the Frontier Society. So what's the Frontier Society all about?
That's just basically our members, our beer member club. There's a lot of kind of Old West influence in the Conejo Valley. So the Frontier Society was kind of named after the vibe of our area. But yeah, it's just a basic club. We just kind of wanted to see what the response would be. So we did it for the 2nd year in a row now, which was pretty cool. A lot of like my high school friends are involved in it, which is awesome to see. But yeah, I think you get typical, you get a hat and a shirt and a pin and a glass and some money off a purchase. And hopefully you get to do like a cool event now at the end of the year, since we couldn't do it during COVID, but having like a, VIP party with us in the brew house would be cool. But we do 5 can releases a year for the Frontier Society, and that's exclusive only. So I think you're looking at the Final Frontier is the one I gave you. Mm-hmm. And that was the last beer of the year last year. It's a coffee maple stout. And I gave you that one just because we have some extras of it and not a lot of people get it. And it's a stout. So I tried it the other day, now it's like 6 months in, and it was tasting awesome. And I was like, all right, I got to send Gary some of this stuff too.
So yeah, as we wrap it up here, Cali Day, loving Cali Day. You mentioned the canning line that you guys just got last week. So that's like new, fresh, and exciting. We're hopefully, out on the other side of the pandemic, and things are only looking up from here. Anything else you're excited about for 2021? Anything on the horizon?
Getting back to a couple festivals. We got Bluesapalooza coming up in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
One of my bucket list dreams of being a brewer is, of course, open up your own brewery and get invited to your favorite festivals. So that would be either Firestone Walker Invitational or Bluesapalooza. So, we put a bunch of work in and went up and visited all of our friends up in Mammoth constantly. And we're like, you guys have to invite us. We're here all the time. Mm-hmm. And so we got the official invite, and I was super happy. So I was like, cool, there's 1 out of 2 dream festivals already done. So really looking forward to getting back out again and mingling around with all a bunch of other industry folk and all the craft beer fans. Now that we kind of have our base built up and people know about us, it's really going to be interesting to see if we set up a booth at a really cool festival like this. What's the response? You never know. Are we just sitting out there kind of no one's coming over, or do we have a bunch of people coming and hyping up the beer and really enjoying it? So yeah, we got that coming up, and then Craft Brewers Conference in Denver. Excited to get back to Denver and have a big meeting of the minds with everyone. So for 2021, it's really, getting back out into the public and putting a face on the beer and seeing everyone again, and hopefully getting another couple collabs going along, and really try to just nurture the distribution with Stone and kind of just let it naturally build up. I like to do that so that we're really in control of the beer and we're not moving faster than we want and putting out beer where we're cutting quality corners, which definitely happens when you start going faster. So luckily, our investors and ownership group is aligned with that plan. So we can comfortably grow our volume and, keep that Cali Day tasting exactly the same.
I love to hear it, man. No change necessary for this beer. This is awesome. So glad that you sent it out. So glad to try it for the first time on camera with you. I was tempted to try it beforehand, and I wanted to be like super fresh for this. And that's kind of nerve wracking sometimes, because I'm like, what if I don't really love it? How do I hide my initial reaction? And it was so nice to be able to.
I totally thought you tried it before, so you're like, "This is my first time trying it," and I'm like, "Oh, you better like it."
Yeah, it's great. So everyone, if you're listening to this, Cali Day is likely available at better bottle shops near you, and if at the very least, if it's not, let your local spot know to bring in Tarantula Hill. And then next, make your way up or down the 101, stop off in TO and check them out, because, man, what a space. The beer's great. The food's great. The vibe's great. You're a lucky man. You got it going on over there. So keep up the good work. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit on the interwebs and enjoy a beer with me. And I look forward to doing it in person, hopefully sometime soon, man.
Yeah, whenever you're able to, take a little trip with the new baby, just come on up and we'll have some beers waiting for you, or hopefully we'll see you out at a festival soon. But yeah, don't be a stranger.
It's on my list, man. Thanks so much. Good to see you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, man.
Hey, you too. And if you try some of those other beers, shoot me a text about what you think of them all too.
I will, for sure. Thanks a lot for sending them.
All right. Here's Gary. Right. Thank you.
Take it easy, Mike. See ya.
Later.
And there you have it, folks. That was Mike Richmond of Tarantula Hill Brewing Company. If you didn't get Cali Day before the episode, you sure as hell better get it now. So head out to your local bottle shop, head out to Thousand Oaks to the brewery itself, and pick up Cali Day along with a bunch of their other beers that they have for sale. Such good stuff. Thank you to Mike for joining me. Keep up the great work over at Tarantula Hill. Really excited to see what you guys got going on in the future. And thank you for listening. If you want to support Hopped LA, of course, we'll accept all of the normal podcast things. Rate, review, download, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But really where it's at is our email newsletter, the Hopped LA Insiders, hoppedla.com/subscribe. This is where we're putting out all of our latest content, all of our breaking news, all of our new products, services, merch, just anything else that we have coming up. Events are a thing that we're working on. So, mini festivals and tastings, new merch. We did the beer box. We hope to be doing more of those. So make sure that you're subscribed to our email newsletter to stay on top of everything that we have going on. We really appreciate your support. Again, hoppedla.com/subscribe. Do it now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.